Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Changing Times and I am Dr. Zubair Khoury. For the last few weeks, there has been an aggressive posturing from the Indian side. First, it was the Indian Prime Minister, and then there was an array, a succession of different Indian ministers saying foul words against Pakistan. I'm using my words very, very carefully. I could have been much more stronger, much more aggressive. But these foul words that have been coming out from the different layers of the Indian establishment are really, really astounding for Pakistan. What has really happened? What has really went wrong when Pakistan have been saying, particularly right from the beginning, with the oath-taking ceremony of Prime Minister Modi, when Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif visited there, as an omen, as a gesture of friendship, as a gesture of coexistence in mutual and beneficial relationship that should be there between the two neighbors. What really had happened wrong? We do understand the past of Mr. Modi. We do understand his credentials. We do understand that he has some audience to address. But giving such claims that we will carry out some strikes, we will carry out some terrorist activities in Pakistan, and if some operation is going on in Myanmar, then that could be a message for Pakistan as well. That is a very, very strong statement. That has been rebutted by both Pakistan's military and civil administration, and also the Joint House declaration has also come out, and they have taken a very, very serious note on this, that this is not going to be acceptable, and Pakistan should not be and cannot be treated at par with countries like Myanmar and other smaller in the region. We are a nuclear state, we are a strong nation, and we have the right and the potential to protest against and also to protect ourselves from these such gestures. I'm going to talk to this about this attitude of Indian politicians with a very experienced and seasoned personality. I have with me Mr. Masood Khan. He is presently working as the Director General of Institute of Strategic Studies, Islamabad. He's also been working with the UN, with the Pakistani career diplomat, and he has a very vast experience of dealing with such issues. Khan Sahab, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
What has really happened? What gone wrong?
First, I would say that this is very unfortunate. I mean, this spate of negative statements that have been issued by the Indian leaders, including the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
It's very unfortunate. And since the Modi government took over, it has not really made any overture towards Pakistan. I mean, the first overture, which was symbolic in nature, was when they invited Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif and he went to Delhi. And I think that the talks were good. This was a good beginning. But then they started sabotaging their own initiative. And Pakistani Prime Minister, he took an initiative. He made this grand gesture of going there, although we knew about the background of the BJP and the political agenda of Mr. Modi.
And we have no shortage of our own hawks. We were saying that Prime Minister should not be going.
At that time, it was a controversial issue, and but the Prime Minister used his judgment and he went over to India. There were some political costs, but he incurred them, and he was there. But India, instead of showing reciprocity, it has been scuttling the entire process, I mean, the potential for dialogue. I think your question is what has happened in the recent past.
In the last 4 6 weeks.
I think that there are a number of factors. One, the armed forces of Pakistan and the civilian government have made a determination that RAW is behind many terrorist incidents in Pakistan, terrorist attacks in Pakistan, and that we said that we'll go after them. In fact, the Indian government and establishment, they have said very openly that they would use local assets here in Pakistan, throughout Pakistan, to destabilize Pakistan politically, economically. They would also try to undermine our internal security. So I think that we have exposed them. And we've said that now we consider these agencies operating in Pakistan and using their proxies as a threat to Pakistan's security. This is one thing. Then we were succeeding with the Afghan leadership. In fact, there was a genuine rapprochement between the Afghan government and Pakistani government. And this was not acceptable to them because Indians were being dislodged there or displaced. The third, I think, is that they didn't like CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. And in fact, they complained to the Chinese leadership, President Xi Jinping and Premier Li Keqiang, and they said that this route or this corridor should not pass through the Gilgit-Baltistan or Azad Kashmir. And finally, I would say that they're becoming nervous because they have their allies not allies, you can call them outfits, which were operating from the Afghan soil. They were penetrating into KPK, and also in Balochistan, they were aiding and abetting and financing these insurgents, if you can call them. And they realized the Pakistani government, Pakistani armed forces were succeeding in their operations because they had flushed out these terrorists, they had dismantled these...
I just want to focus on the two incidents. One was the recent incident that, not an incident, when Prime Minister Modi visited Bangladesh and he issued some statement and said that all Indians were part of your independence movement. For us, it was a secession movement. And he said that he, being a part of that, he took pride in it. And he was given that award by the Bangladeshi Prime Minister as well. How do you see this in the diplomatic levels, in the international laws levels?
Diplomatic level, it's a disaster. A sitting Prime Minister should not have said that. I think that, in a sense, he has betrayed the entire nation of India. And then I think there's a degree of culpability in this also. And he has admitted that India had these nefarious designs against Pakistan. Pakistan, when it had two parts, East Pakistan and West Pakistan, and Indian military and Indian forces, they used all the resources at their disposal to strike at our federation. This was unlawful by any standards, and it is, as I said, is culpable from the point of view of the international law. This culpability can be determined. I think this was a very the Prime Minister of Pakistan yesterday said that it's a very irresponsible and a very imprudent statement.
It is an irresponsible statement, but shouldn't we be taking it ahead at an international level, and maybe ICJ?
Yeah, and no, my worries are, of course, the government is reflecting on all these issues, and they would take a considered decision in this regard. So we have to wait what they're trying to do. But I think that this impetuosity on the part of the Indian leadership, this must go down. If they really want peace and stability in the region, if they really want engagement between Pakistan and India.
Two more things.
Mr. Ajit, there's one thing, let me tell you that, let me complete this part of the conversation. We're worried about 1971, but we're also worried about what can happen today and tomorrow, because I think they were trying to signal that we can do a similar thing now.
Yeah, that's what I was coming to Ajit Dole's statement when he said that we can carry out terrorist attacks in Pakistan. And this recently, their information state minister said that when they carried out an operation inside Myanmar, they said this is a signal to others as well, and including Pakistan, and we can carry out the same thing. That's what the last nail in the coffin, perhaps.
You know, in 1971, they used state apparatus, state terrorism to destabilize Pakistan. And this time they are threatening to use non-state actors in Pakistan, terrorists in Pakistan. And I think both are criminal. There's criminal intent behind them. And I think that saner elements and more well-informed elements within the Indian establishment should know that even if they do that, they are not going to succeed, because there would be a massive retaliation from Pakistan. And so I think that they should think a million times before even thinking about such a scenario.
No, so they should be thinking, but what about those senior elements that you are referring to? Are they gone in hiding? Where are they?
No.
Not even a senior voice is coming. We know that they are going to exuberant their Indian media, but what about the senior voices, the politicians? Even the Congress is silent on this.
No, there's been some criticism. I agree with you that this has been muted, but Pakistan and India are nuclear weapon states. We have very well established deterrence between the two countries. I think what India is trying to do is that they believe in what they call proactive deterrence. And some of the Indian journals have said that this can work in Myanmar, and it hasn't worked in Myanmar because Myanmar has denied that Indian forces ever made an incursion into the Myanmar territory. So this was a hoax.
What they were jumping on then.
Yes, but the other thing that you have to remember is that when you have two nuclear weapon states like Pakistan and India with such geographical proximity, it is suicidal to think of an attack like that. And as our formation commanders, as the Prime Minister of Pakistan have said, that there should be no doubt in their minds that we will protect our vital interests at all costs.
Okay,
and
these inviting statements are coming in. They may be inviting aggression from our side, that we should get inflamed over it and may get as responsible as they are. What should be our course of action?
But before that, I mean, you have to make a determination what is motivating them, and you have asked that question. But I think that first thing that they must understand is that India cannot and should not use terrorism as state policy. India has declared itself as a quasi-terrorist state because it's saying that they are going to use terrorist outfits and assets in Pakistan. We know they've been doing it, but now they're admitting it. They're so bold that they've been bragging about it. They've started bragging about it. And I think this is disastrous. Our response has been very careful, measured, particularly the statement which was given by the Prime Minister. It is very balanced. He said that despite all these provocations, we are not going to abandon our moral high ground because we're going to stick to our quest for a peaceful neighborhood. Now, I think that, but there are a couple of options. I mean, our armed forces are prepared. I think that we should also mobilize our civil society, and civil society has been doing a great job. If you watch media programs, they have been responding to Indian allegations. But I think that this is not a time for complacency. This is not a time for dismissing what the Indians have said. There should be a preparedness on two fronts, diplomatic front, because we should reach out to the United Nations, other multilateral forums, and also to world capitals. My real fear in this regard is that I was reading some American newspapers or some other world newspapers. They're still biased against Pakistan. I mean, instead of criticizing the Indian leadership, they were worried why Pakistan is reacting like that so angrily. So I mean, this bias. So when we say we will work on the diplomatic front, we'll have to work very hard, in a very systematic fashion. The second thing that we need is defense preparedness. And this is for, I don't foresee a conventional war or a strategic war between the two countries, because that would be disastrous and suicidal. We should, in fact, refine our counter-terrorist strategy, and they should focus sharply. It is already being done, but I think that a sharper focus on externally sponsored terrorism. Because and now the Indians have started calling us enemies, right? And their objective is to destabilize Pakistan politically, economically, also in terms of internal security, as I mentioned earlier. They also want to create destabilization in Balochistan, and they don't want us to succeed in Afghanistan.
Okay, let's move on, take it a step further. I'm just thinking into the future, that any next time in future that we want to have that kind of peaceful relationship, peaceful coexistence, the dovish approach. All the people who want peaceful approach with India and Pakistan, don't you think they have received a serious setback for all things to come?
This is a serious setback, and I think that the senior elements in India and Pakistan, they should be worried, and so should global capitals. I think that Washington should be worried, because they have been advocating strategic stability in South Asia, but naturally these jingoistic statements emanating from Delhi, they are not moving the region towards stability, they're destabilizing it. So I think that yes, it's not just the South Asians, but the international community should be worried. I'm sure that they're worried in New York, I mean, which is the capital of United Nations, where the United Nations is housed, and also in other parts of the world. I think what I saw that because of this bragging and because of their overreach, there's a bit of backlash in India. But this is a pattern, what Mr. Modi has said, and I don't foresee things calming down in the future unless proactive initiatives are taken, either directly through formal channels or behind the scenes.
Okay, let's focus or try to link this with this present visits of Modi to Bangladesh. They have drawn up an agreement on the border area. They have also agreed to give $2 billion in aid to aid and grant it to Bangladesh, and also different transport services have been increased and other things have also been given. Do you think that this is trying to create a smaller bloc within SAARC just to counter Pakistan and its emergence?
Yes, Mr. Modi said something to that extent in Dhaka University. In his address, he said that, well, there are some more loyal members in the SAARC member. And he was, in fact, pointing a finger at Pakistan, which is not true. In fact, the Indian government, all Indian governments, successive governments, have been the biggest barrier to integration of SAARC countries. So I'm glad that they are talking about more integration, cooperation. But I think that SAARC without Pakistan would not be a full organization. I mean, they can't, it's to start with, we do not have a very large membership. So I think that creating subgroupings is not going to help there at all. We should look at South Asia as a whole. As far as Pakistan is concerned, we are investing in CPEC, China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, and we think that this initiative, in the long run, as we are implementing this corridor, all the projects under this corridor, I think that we would become a connectivity backbone for multiple regions, not just for South Asia, but also for East Asia, Central Asia, West Asia, and Southwest Asia. So I think that India, this is a writing on the wall for India. In fact, this is what roils them, because they think that Pakistan should not have that strategic position, and that's why they are worried, and in fact they are panicked, and that's why they are issuing these statements which do not seem to make any sense.
Okay, one last comment. We are just running short of time of this segment. What should be coming next, and what is coming next? Can you look into that glass bowl to look into the future?
Yes, I mean, first, we should lament about what's happening and this spiral of events, of these developments, very unhelpful, very negative developments that are taking place, the tit-for-tat statements. But the second thing is that I think sanity should prevail. There should be some initiatives should be taken. There should be more room for diplomacy and engagement and reaching out to each other. But some of the statements that the Indian leaders have made, either they should retract them. I mean, like, for instance, the statement given by the defense minister, Parikar, it has to be retracted. They haven't retracted it. They're boasting about it, that this is their new pasture, that this is their, and that this will change the mindset in South Asia. So, on the one hand, I remain pessimistic. On the other, I would say that all sides, and the onus is on India to take these initiatives, not us, because we've been reacting to the statements that they have been giving. So they are responsible for vitiating the atmosphere.
Thank you very much, Mr. Khan Sahab, for joining us for this segment of the program. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll keep talking about this Pakistan-India relation in the context of the recent developments and the aggressive posturing that the Indian establishment have been posing towards Pakistan. But this is time for a very short break. Please have a break. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We have been talking about India-Pakistan relations and the statements that have been coming out from the Indian senior ministers and even the prime ministers, and what could be the impact on Pakistan-India relations, and particularly the relationship that is also affecting the region, Afghanistan, China, and also extended up to Bangladesh, Nepal, and maybe into the Far East as well. So let me introduce to the guests that I have. I have two Maliks with me this time in this segment. I have Mr. Aqab Malik. He is teaching in National Defense University and a security analyst. Mr. Malik, welcome to the show. And we are also honored by Salma Malik Sahiba. She is teaching in Kazim University, and she has also been looking into these affairs. Let me start with Salma, with you. These statements, if you look at all these things, they are coming once again, because there have been an ups and downs. This is seesaw going on. Sometimes you're talking about peace, peace, peace. Sometimes you are talking about, okay, we have good relations. And suddenly, some things start coming from India, and we are back to square one. How do you see this?
Well, actually, you're right about the seesaw pattern was something which was more predictable during the last regime or the last administration under Manmohan Singh. But so long as the Modi government is concerned, since the day one they have come in, we have been a little more optimistic about the semantics and how the things are moving. They have never really given us any points to be confident about. They have been very cautious. They haven't given any pro-peace or pro-friendly statements. If we take the Sak Yatra and stuff like that as a Pakistan-specific activity, then under how these things are unfolding or have unfolded, then we can think twice about it. So those notions need to be revisited and seen as to how the Modi government has approached Pakistan. They haven't really come up with a peace deliverance policy at all. And one reason to that is that they are not interested about it. One factor is very loud and clear. The second thing is that they're very euphoric about the type of reception that they have received. The Americans are quoting them. Wherever they go, it's Modi's moment. So he's having a very, very good time about it. And the recent statements specifically from the Bangladesh platform, they make a lot of sense. They make sense because at the moment the Bengali regime is not a very pro-Pakistani or Pakistan-friendly regime at all. Begum Khalda Sahiba, Begum Hasina Wajid is not a person who is at all.
She looks to be on a vengeance pattern.
She's completely on a vengeance pattern. So, and not only with Pakistan, she's very angry with her own Bengali population who has anything to do with dissenting voice or something to do with what had happened in 1971. So for Modi to go there and say the type of statements that have come out is I would actually take it more in favor of Bangladesh than against Pakistan. But although it goes hand in hand, but if you try to make a distinction, so it's more pro-Bangladeshi statements and the arming and the quoting factor rather than the fact that he would say something about Pakistan.
Okay, Aqab, if you look at, if you pick up this point from where Salma has left the relationship between India and Bangladesh, and when Prime Minister Modi, while in Bangladesh, says that we were part of the independence movement, incidentally that was the movement or kind of an activity that you referred to as the secession of Pakistan. It's an international crime, isn't it?
Well, if you have one country and there may be dissent in that country, a part of it, and you're encouraging that part of dissension, that is an intervention in that country, which goes against international law completely. You may find in the future that they would admit to what they're doing in Balochistan now, which is ample proof and evidence.
Well, they have already started when they said that we are going to carry out terrorist activities in
that
Pakistan.
was the defense minister just recently as well. No, that was the defense minister that said this. We will use terrorists against terrorism.
Against terrorism.
Or we will defeat them this way. Which indicates that they're willingly, openly saying they're going to utilize terrorist activities. And they're justifying that. Without any credible information to the detriment of that. But when we talk about what Modi has been saying, you would look at the larger picture. And the way I see India developing and talking to Pakistan for a prolonged period of time now is that they're hedging bets. If anybody can see the video of Ajit Doval, the now National Security Advisor to Modi, on the internet, it would indicate that he is completely on the offense now. He defines it in certain terms which are pretty ridiculous because he's not an academic in that way. He's not really a strategist. He's been an on-the-ground operative most of his life. He's been given a high profile without understanding the strategic dimensions and the implications of his actions.
No,
but saying that he
we
wants
can't
to go
put the blame squarely on him because this is a big game that is going on strategically.
So
some other brains might have also been involved.
No, there is no doubt. But him being at the forefront now makes more impact, does it not? Him being a national security advisor, you look at the leadership, you look at what it's saying, then you tend to change your policy or act or react or your behavior and your policy according to what the leadership is saying. The leadership makes a policy, the leadership makes a direction and the goals for the country. And it provides
But then
indicators.
it ultimately falls on Modi.
But it does. But then doesn't that reflect what Modi has said in Bangladesh?
It is.
It is in parallel to it.
It is.
It is in
different
sync
prongs
with it.
of the same.
It is in sync with it. So now we have to look at the bigger picture here. This is part of the policy of hedging their bets as far as Pakistan is concerned. They want Pakistan defeated and reduced. because for Pakistan to be reduced or fragmented is in their benefit. They think. They don't realize for
Isn't
Pakistan...
it a policy since independence? That's what they have been thinking.
They have been, but I think it's been more aggressive now.
Okay.
As open and more aggressive.
Okay, let me go to Salma. Do you agree with this? Or this is one-time bubble that may going to burst? That's what we happened in 2003 maybe, after the parliament attack. That's what we saw in 2008. That's what we saw after the Kargil debacle. And that's what we are looking at this now.
Yeah, well, actually for this, it is on their wish list forever and forever. I mean, even if you look at the formation of Pakistan, the teething problems that Pakistan had, how Sardar Patel's policies were, why Nehru stopped him from doing certain things, stopping the water, so many other things. There's a huge list of items which were there, put in place primarily to make the state of Pakistan fail in its infancy and return.
Okay.
And of course, it's on record of Indian leadership saying that let the British go and Pakistanis are going to fall black. So we'll handle it. So they thought that Pakistan, and even at that weakest point, when Pakistan had nothing to show for itself, near absent defense, poor bureaucracy, no institutions, if we survived then, we can very well survive now. But having said that, we really need to strengthen our home, we really need to strengthen our institutions, and we really need to strengthen the problems that we have here. We need to get rid of them.
Yes,
so long as we keep on providing them the pockets, they're going to exploit them. So that factor is there.
Every country has their own set of problems.
That's
India has
precisely
their
I
own
was
set
about
of
to
problems.
say.
Afghanistan has.
Yes.
Even
but
United States have. But doesn't mean that you start saying that we are going to carry out terrorist attacks.
No, that's the point. That's the point. But here the issue is that they use the Pakistanis as the front tool in their war and in their battles. And you see, whatever is happening in other countries, let it happen in other countries. But our country is very precious for ourselves. We have a lot of pressures facing us on ethnic level, sectarian, terrorism, militancy, etc., etc. So in case we have Indians being so provocative about it, and I would actually say this is a good thing that Pakistanis are not getting provoked beyond a certain point, that it could actually, had this type of statement been issued from Pakistani side, I'm pretty sure India's cold start, oblique, proactive doctrine would have already been started gunning up. So in case of Pakistan, we have shown a very mature and a very good response.
Okay, isn't it the case that the so-called hawkish elements in Pakistan are now saying that, didn't we say that? This is what we have been clamoring about, and you have been so much pacifist and the so-called doves. And what about the people who have been advocating that we should have peace with India? Okay, forget about the past, let's move forward. What about them?
Can I bring us back? Having been brought in an environment where I mixed around with Indians all my life in England, I never really saw a distinction between us and them. We were all bunched in the same ethnic group as far as the English was concerned.
Yeah.
And so we got along with each other. So I never saw them as anything different from myself. Having been here for the last 6 and 7 years, I see everything has changed. Because I see the
paradigm has changed?
In a way, because we were in a different boat then. Now we're in a completely different scenario, different situation. We're in the home front, facing a larger country that its own policies. They feel affronted that we went separate. And they've still got that chip on the shoulder. And when somebody says, we always said this was the case, I was never like that. I'm becoming to that point.
You're getting the hang of things.
I'm getting to the point to realize, look, maybe in England it was a different issue. Here, the circumstances are very different. What I'm facing, the information I get, the receive, the understanding that I'm imparting myself, learning about, I'm not hawkish, although my name is Aqab. but because what I see is that the reality on the ground is that India has become more offensive in its nature, and you can see that from the video. The problem here is that this is an ongoing situation that Pakistan, I feel, is handling well. And what I've also noticed is that peace maneuvers, CBMs, the initiatives are generally, on the large part, have been from here to the Indians and generally rejected from their side, which means, what do they want?
No, what the common thing is that they take you as a lesser neighbor, And for them, perhaps they say that, okay, you don't exist, we are a bigger power. Remember when this government came to power and their foreign minister, Ms. Swaraj, she said that Pakistan must understand that India has changed. It's a bigger economy, bigger country, and it has bigger aspirations. So Pakistan must start to learn to live in these circumstances.
So then we should just put our head down and do whatever they say?
No,
that's not going to happen.
But you see,
that's not going to happen.
countries can have big aspirations, but that does not really mean that you start hurting the neighbor
or
and you start telling and demeaning the neighbor.
Yes.
I mean,
or drawing parallel with Myanmar.
Having aspirations and having an aggressive policy which is actually impinging on your neighbors and telling them to be in your place, or in case the neighbor is having some kind of an economic corridor working out, so you immediately go on the offensive and you start having palpitations, doesn't really show that you are a big at heart or an aspirant great power.
They're very frustrated
exactly.
with the new
So in case you want to be a great power, then you have to show the mental of a great power.
Yes,
you can't really be a great power just because you're a big bully and you've eaten a lot of stuff and you have grown in size. No, it doesn't happen. And few of the factors on which India is banking today and considering itself to be the big power, quoting by the Americans, the big market and all of those things, they are true. They are not bloated stuff, but they're really there. They're on the ground.
The economy is also growing. We must not forget, on
but
average 7 to 8% growth.
Precisely, but that does not really mean that this thing is going to stay forever, or if Pakistan is at the moment in a difficult economic spot, that difficulty will always remain there. Pakistan is already trying to make efforts to come out of those difficulties and the problems that it has faced in the past. So when we do it, it will happen. We too still have people who are coming to us, and we are having partnerships with them. And as and how we keep on improving our domestic situation, these partnerships are going to get better. So you cannot judge your neighbors on their size or just yourself being a big bully. That doesn't really work.
Okay.
In fact, I was just very sorry. I'll just bank on the point that you people were talking about. Aqab has talked about dual statements which are extremely important. There's this statement by a senior government official back in October 2014 who said that the Prime Minister office has instructed us to ensure that Pakistan suffers deep and heavy losses.
Oh my God.
So these type of statements,
is very
actually. So, and if this is what the bureaucracy has been given, the agenda, the blank check, so then you can imagine the statements that are coming out, whether
you see the fountain, where is it all coming from? You said that it may not be Modi, it may be only Ajay Dod. The buck doesn't stop here.
But it doesn't. But isn't this a policy then?
Yes,
it's a policy.
This is an unwritten policy that we need to recognize. One of the things I noticed when Modi went to China, the number of interactions that they had, but Modi was very defensive and very affronted.
He was complaining against Pakistan.
Absolutely.
China,
but is this what a great power does? He's not happy that Pakistan is rising.
Yeah.
And when I was in China just 2 weeks ago, I was on the CICA, it's called the Conference of Interaction Confidence Building Measures in Asia, which is now the largest security dialogue in the whole of Asia, and it's such as the OSCE in Europe. And we had a lot of different prime ministers and foreign ministers and retired politicians and other officials there that were talking. And I felt a sense of pride. I felt a sense of hope now for Pakistan because of the strategic corridor. If we can carry this through, if we take responsibility for our actions, if we're able to be honest to ourselves with integrity and character, and we allow this thing to occur and help, we could be a massive trading hub in the world now.
Okay. Now, apart from this thing that is CPEC, that we can see that they are literally perturbed over it. What about this, that India might have lost their ground in Afghanistan with the increasing relationship between Pakistan and Afghanistan, and also China, Pakistan, and Afghanistan are going on in a trilateral course of development?
Well, if you look at what Ashraf Ghani's been trying to do, he realizes that the stance that Karzai had was actually negative for Afghanistan. Primarily because we have a very large border, we're their neighbor, and supporting the neighbor's enemy is going to cause problems for yourself. Eventually, and we don't want that, nor do they eventually. I think he came down to an understanding of sense. He's an intellectual, he was a professor at SAIS, Johns Hopkins, an alumni of, like myself, at Johns Hopkins. My point is that we're dealing with a very intelligent man now. And we're dealing with a man that has a longer vision, an understanding of what the country needs to do in Afghanistan, a realization that Pakistan is a partner to this, and that we both need to work together to have a prosperous future together.
We do understand that, but what's India's problems here?
India's problem is
that investment is going.
But if you look at what Ajit Doval has said before, he said they utilized Afghanistan to the detriment of Pakistan. So they've been using Afghanistan, opening different consulates, having their raw agents and their other Secret Service agents, for example, intelligence agencies, to undermine Pakistan thoroughly amongst the masses there, amongst the Afghani masses against Pakistan. And now the problem with that is it's not good for Afghanistan to do that. And there's a realization that this is the case and they need to unite and have an independent stance in Afghanistan as it had done prior to the invasion of the Soviet Union on Afghanistan, where they're more neutral. And they want to maintain that now and come back to their origins, what they were for hundreds of years.
Okay. Salma, when we have a very, very big conflict zone that is brewing in the Middle East with the ISIS and the Syrian problem and the Iraqi problem, the Yemeni problem, are we going to see anything erupting in this region as well in terms of conflict? Or these are just false things that are bubbling up from the inside?
One hopes not, although there are certain early warning signals that are coming up in various quarters, even in India, Pakistan and Afghanistan. The good news in Afghanistan is that the Taliban and the IS don't see eye to eye. So I really hope the Taliban become that firewall and it doesn't really
they
come
both
across.
Call each other terrorists.
They call each other terrorists. So that's actually one of the very interesting factors where one terrorist calls the other terrorist and all. But anyways, we cannot ignore the threat. That factor is there. We cannot play complacent that, oh, actually because these dynamics don't exist in Pakistan. No, all they are really wedded into the political economy of conflict. So if they find amiable grounds here, they're definitely going to cross over. And there's a lot of fodder on which they can feed. So that wouldn't be a problem. A lot of people earlier in the point found the IS ideology very impressive and very alluring, and they went from this area and they joined them, specifically from India and other places. So it is not that IS is a myth here. It is very much a reality. If we have been able to catch the early warning signals and try to prevent it, that's an interesting thing, but we again cannot remain complacent that, oh, since we have done it, so there is no threat. There are a lot of grounds, there's a lot of adventurism that is going on. We have been successful since December 16th on certain areas, but it's a very long order, the counterterrorism strategy, and there's the need to do a lot of things.
Okay.
And we haven't really covered much.
Apart from that, when all these such statements and all these fiery speeches that were being made in the past by the Indian ministers and the Indian establishment, there has been a usual association with it, that is the heightened tension on the line of control. This hasn't happened this time.
This is unusual, is it not?
Yeah.
It's unusual, but I think
there's a method in this madness?
I don't think there's any method in their madness, but I think there's more a reaction to Pakistan being heightened in the public domain, being fundamental to the new China, a new One Belt, One Road vision that China has, and the current President Xi Jinping. And Pakistan is party to that, it's fundamental to that. And that's a bit of a spanner in the works for the Indians, primarily because Pakistan's utilizing public affairs now massively. This is one of the criticisms I had about Pakistan before, when we were not utilizing the infosphere, the public domain, understanding public affairs, as well as the Indians were, who utilized and have been able to circumvent us in the international community.
If you see the international media's response, they're still thinking, some of the Americans and some of the British newspapers, they are saying that why Pakistan is reacting to such statements like this, Pakistan is inviting some kind of conflict.
Well, let's look at what happens amongst the lobbying, amongst the people that are in the United States and in London, for example. The Indians are intrinsic and entrenched in the public affairs down there, in the think tanks,
public
in the media, for example.
So when the State Department,
when you're interacting with them on a daily basis, and they're talking to you on a daily basis about a particular situation, you tend to get their favour. And what happens is that Pakistan is not doing that.
Money is playing a role.
Well, a hell of a lot of money is playing the role. They've got the money to do so. Pakistan has unfortunately failed to do that. And I saw this when I was in the States a couple of years ago at Johns Hopkins. I visited a lot of think tanks, a lot of sessions and workshops and conferences, and I noticed there was barely any Pakistanis there, and Indians were there everywhere. and playing the part and saying their thing. And as a result, their voice is louder.
Okay, one last thing.
More
Salma.
recognition.
What should we do next? Is it okay that we only give these statements? Our Prime Minister and the Joint Session and the Chief of Army Staff there have said very clearly that please do not take it easily. Or should we do something else?
No, actually, statements such as these are rhetorical, number one. However, what needs to be taken seriously are stuff where they say that we are going to respond to Pakistan on their grounds, stuff like that. The proxy war that they're going to do. And two grounds that need to be really looked into is A, Afghanistan. The point that Aqab has made is very valid, but at the same time where President Ghani is a wonderful person, he's the man of the job, but it cannot be a one-man show. He has a lot of opposition that he has to appease, and that opposition has a massive distrust factor with Pakistan. So Pakistan and Afghanistan really have to deliver for each other, otherwise this chemistry will not be able to work very well. So we have to see how they try to harm our interest and good relations in Afghanistan. And the second thing that we really now have to see is what they do in KPK and Balochistan, which is the heartland of the Western corridor. And it's going to be very turbulent. And we're already seeing the signs of it brewing up.
Thank you very much, Ms. Salma Malik, and thank you very much, Aqab Malik, for joining us on this show. Ladies and gentlemen, we have already said all the things, and there are different aspects of these developments that are happening. There may be regional issues, there may be also the Big Brother syndrome that is being associated with India quite often in different parts of history, and also the regional politics and international politics is also changing. We have to safeguard our home, we have to protect ourselves, not only militarily, but also economically and socially. And this is one big opportunity, CPAC, that is coming right in our backyard, and we should grab it with both hands. Your suggestions, feedback are more than welcome at facebook.com/Dr. Zubair Ghori official, and my Twitter handle is Dr. Zubair Ghori. That's all from us tonight. A very good night. Allah Hafiz.